Hey flower friends, welcome back to the Flower Shop Network's Floral Education Series. I'm Kelsey Thompson, AIFD, and today we're diving into one of the hottest looks in wedding florals right now, which is the meadow trend. And I know you've seen this down aisles or maybe framing ceremony spaces, but it's definitely making its way to tabletops. And unlike traditional centerpieces that are in vases or vessels, these designs create that illusion of flowers and greens growing naturally right out of the table, either in concentrated groupings or in floral runners. And what makes this look so special is the way that it transforms a standard table into an immersive experience for their guests. It's like a tablescape. So brides are really loving it. They like how it incorporates moss and lots of greenery and lots of textures. It kind of creates that straight from the garden or that very like fairy forest aesthetic. Now let's talk about creating this look. It can be very flower intensive and it can be very labor intensive, which means that it can get expensive quickly. But the good news is that with some thoughtful mechanics and some good material selection, we can create that stunning meadow effect without breaking the bank. You can also keep the cost down by doing a mix on a table. So maybe you've got a few smaller meadow designs and loamy dishes, intermixed with some candles and some bud vases versus a full-on runner. So today I'm going to demonstrate one method of doing this. I'm going to be using some Oasis trays and floral foam and moss. You can place these trays together to make a long meadow runner, or you can use them individually in strategic spots or on the venue and reception to kind of add that organic look. Okay, let's get started. So I've got here an Oasis single brick tray. I've also got a double brick to show you how I cut my foam in half horizontally. Hamburger versus hot dog. Did you guys do that in elementary school? So this is hamburger style. So I cut the foam this way to kind of create just this very thin, maybe 2-inch piece of foam that I can then use one brick in a double brick tray and go a little further with it. And then I use the black waterproof tape to secure my foam. I've done the same thing here in a single brick tray, and I wanted to show you that so you can see the mechanics. I'm going to be designing in the single brick today. So one of the things that you need to think about when you are designing with this trend is if you're going to be incorporating moss at all, moss wicks moisture. So you need to be really considerate of the fact that there's table linens or other things on the tables and prepare for that. So I use cellophane. I've brought some here that's got the little white dots just so you can see it, but clear cellophane is great. And I not only attach that cellophane to the bottom, I would tack 2000 this to the bottom of this tray, but I've also done the same to my pieces of moss. So just tack 2000. I just stuck the cellophane right to the bottom of the moss, and I'm not going to incorporate these pieces into my initial design. These are going to be pieces that I'm going to incorporate once we set up. So if this is piece A, I've got maybe piece A, B, C, D down a table. These are moss pieces A, and they're going to go right along with it. And then when I get there, I got my design, and then I can just snuggle this moss right up next to my design and incorporate it really organically. And I know that my moss that's on the tabletop or on the linen isn't going to be wicking water from my design because it's a separate piece and it's got this nice little liner. So these are things that just got to be thoughtful of as you're working with venues. Of course, you want to establish and maintain those good relationships. So having these separate pieces of moss, prepping them ahead of time is a really great way to be able to avoid issues with water saturation. And if you are thoughtful about how you store this, you can reuse these pieces more than once. So something that I thought was a nice little tip for you guys and I wanted to share. Now, when I'm working with moss on foam, I always kind of want to pull the moss apart. You know, if it comes in a box of sheet moss, sometimes it can be really tight and hard to design through. So I just kind of gently pull the moss apart to kind of create some spacing. Your viewers aren't going to see it. It's going to be covered with a lot of flowers. Some people like a really heavy moss look, and that's great, especially if you are on a tighter budget and you really want to get heavy with moss. But today we're going to be adding some mixed greens and stuff, and I know that I've got these side pieces coming in, so I can really strategically place this moss, knowing that this kind of center area, no one's really going to see it, so it's going to be covered up. Let's get started with greens. Now, if you are going to be doing a heavier meadow look, this is going to be kind of a sparse, maybe more organic design. If you're going to be doing a heavier look, whether that's a lot of heavier flowers like several roses or dahlias, or if you've got lots of vertical elements, if you're putting liatris or snapdragons or something in this, something that's kind of top heavy, you're going to want to avoid the half piece of Oasis. You're going to want to go with the full piece. Totally fine, just adds a little bit more cost. You can't split your bricks, but that's going to give you that depth of insertion that you're going to need. So the goal of this is just to make it as organic as possible. And I'm going to start by mixing in just several bits of greenery, remembering that if I'm going to be butting this up to a friend on a table, that I need to make sure that I'm keeping my insertions mostly upright or at a 45-degree angle. I can kind of crisscross a little bit, knowing that this is going to butt, but you can't be doing this situation because you're going to run into it. So being mindful of how you're going to place it. If this is a single piece that you're just going to be placing, again, maybe it's a round table and this is your single piece. Again, it's a little bit more natural for things to be growing in groups. Maybe that this greenery is all growing over here, and we've got just like a single piece kind of budding out. But again, in nature, you're not going to have something necessarily draping down like this. So being thoughtful with your greenery choices. If you want some drape, maybe some eucalyptus or something that naturally has that feel, would be a better option versus this grevillea. So I'm going to initially start by just greening in. Now, another great greenery to use is Italian ruscus. And I like ruscus for this because it kind of does a lot of coverage for me. So this would be something where if I was using the double brick tray or even a triple brick tray, I would go ahead and just lay the ruscus across the entire thing. It's going to be fine without water. It's going to visually cover up a lot of space. And then you've got all your other stuff all coming vertically. So this is laid horizontally. You can either U-pin it in or just use your natural tension of your stems that you're inserting to kind of hold it in. But it's a great way to add a lot of coverage really quickly. Plumosa does the same with plumosa. I do have to kind of bend that end in so it is receiving water. But then you can kind of lay the plumosa across and get a lot of really great coverage really quickly. So a little tip if you like Italian ruscus or if that's the look that your bride is going for, versus inserting it vertically, try laying it across across this way. I love Lepidium. I love how delicate and kind of airy it is. I think it's a great greenery option for this type of design. It definitely gives me that meadow vibe. It is a little bit delicate, so that's something that I might add a few pieces now, but then as I get closer to the end, I'll go in and fill in with even more of this just because I don't want to be damaging my insertion points when I put my flowers in. Now, just like in regular design, be thoughtful about how things grow in nature. So I'm going to put my focal flowers or visually weighty flowers more towards the bottom here. I'm going to stagger the heights because, of course, naturally they'd be growing at different heights, but I wouldn't want to put, of course, one Disbud Mum just floating in the middle. If he's in there once, he needs a friend in there again because that's how they grow in nature. But it is a really great flower to use to cover a lot of area and to make kind of a great visual impact without breaking the bank. These also can tolerate just a little bit of drought. They're not touchy like snapdragons would be. So they give me that height. It's very sturdy. I can move it. I can deliver it. It's going to give me some interest and some depth. And I know that they're going to last just fine. I'm going to pull some mini carnations in as well. You want to be thoughtful about the different types of head sizes you have. I've got my weightier flowers here. Now I'm going to add in kind of a medium accent flower in the form of these mini carnations. And of course, remembering that this will be viewed from both sides. I've got guests sitting on both sides of the table, or perhaps it's a round table. For a round table, I would use maybe an 11-inch loamy dish instead of this brick tray. But it's 100% up to whatever your bride wants and what budget allows for. Another great thing about this design style is that you know when you process and you've got just like little bits that fall off, this is the perfect place to use them. So if you go ahead and make the bouquets ahead of time, or at least pull bouquets and strip foliage and strip stems, any of these leftover little bits and pieces can be set aside and then utilized in these meadow style designs. One of the biggest draws for this design style, especially with brides that I'm seeing right now, is how organic it looks and how kind of foresty it looks. They love the look of the moss. So green trick's a great option. Hypericum berries also feel like very textural and different. Brides are looking for things that set them apart from their peers. They want to not have the same thing as their friends. So incorporating some of these more unique varieties like the Lepidium and the green trick, dianthus, is kind of a fun way to achieve that and still stay on that kind of foresty or meadowy look. Now you can see here that I'm being really intentional about leaving some negative space. We don't want to fill this design in completely. I'm honestly about done with this because you really want the guests to be able to see through and talk to each other, but the whole intention is that it looks organic and kind of undesigned. So making sure that you leave some negative space, kind of has some natural curvatures. I'm sure you can imagine if I had another design here, I would have a bit of negative space and then, have some varied heights here. Not only is it cheaper to have negative space, but it's also exactly what the brides are looking for. I'm going to finish it out with just some little bits of wax flower, just to kind of bring in that smallest of head shape. I've got my focal elements, my larger headed flowers here. I've got kind of some medium accent blooms and berries. And now I'm just going to pull in just a little bit of wax flower just to give me that third size and shape and bring in a little bit more of that pinky peach color that we're seeing with those disc bud mums. Last but not least, remember I was going to go back in with some more of that lepidium because it's kind of delicate. And I'm just going to fill in any spots that I feel need it. Again, you kind of want to still see the moss. This is a pretty heavy meadow, but you could get away with 5 insertions on this if you have heavily mossed. I needed to cover some foam, so I didn't. But now I've got my little meadow piece. I can go in now with my additional moss pieces and kind of butt those right up. Just take a peek and look how they see. Now I maybe see that I want to add just a little bit of lepidium coming out this way so that this front moss piece kind of feels like it is part of the design. Oop, that one's broken. Or if you want to pull in a little bit more ruscus, that would be great here. Because you want to marry the moss to the design. You don't want it to feel like it's not meant to be there, but there you go. So now the moss feels maybe more like it's part of the design. I'll scoot it back so you can see it. Same thing on the back side. As I'm setting up now, I'll drop this piece in, knowing very confidently that my moss is going to stay, that my moss isn't going to be leaking on the table. If you want to, you could use a wire pin or one of the Oasis greening pins, the bamboo ones, to really pop that moss in and secure it. But depending on how many other greens you have hanging over it, you might not even need it. So and there you have it, a stunning meadow-inspired arrangement that delivers that high-end, organic, luxury look without requiring an unlimited budget. And this technique is incredibly versatile. It can be scaled up or down depending on your client's needs and vision. And I hope that this has inspired you and given you the confidence to sell and price these meadowing trends for your next wedding or special event.